Welcome to Eye on Africa, France 24's program focused on the continent. I'm Charlie James, and these are the headlines. 31 people are dead in northeast Nigeria following an attack being blamed on Boko Haram. Young girls were used as suicide bombers, then rockets were fired into a crowd. Political opponents living in exile from Djibouti have to fight for democracy from the outside. But in Brussels, some opposition groups are also fighting each other. France 24 examines why. And Tunisia falls 2-1 to England in its premier World Cup match. Our sports editor joins with all the details on the energetic game, full of close calls. And we begin in Nigeria's Borno state, where suicide blasts and rockets killed 31 people on Sunday. Deploying young girls as bombers, suspected Boko Haram jihadists attacked the northeastern town of Djibouti. The blast targeted people returning from Eid holiday celebrations. Shortly after, rocket-propelled grenades were fired into the crowd gathered at the scene, further increasing casualties. The attack carries the hallmarks of the Boko Haram insurgency, though no one has claimed responsibility yet. Earlier on the program, freelance journalist Sam Olakoya joined us from Lagos with more on conflicting reports of what happened in this attack.
It's clear that there were explosions, but the circumstance under which these explosions occur remain an issue. Most of the villagers in that location say the military fired artillery, and this artillery pieces was responsible for the casualty. But the military, on the other hand, says they blamed the explosions on the Boko Haram insurgency. The police came out with a statement which to me was a bit vague. They never said what exactly happened. All the police said was that some people died in what they describe as suspected terrorist attack. So it's unclear as to who actually carried out this attack, whether it's the military or the Boko Haram insurgents. We know that last year, the military carried out an attack on the location in Ran village where 115 people were killed. It was an Air Force bombing in a camp for internally displaced people. So we don't know whether this was something similar to that incident.
Turning now to Djibouti, where Ismail Omar Guelleh has ruled since 1999 and has strongly oppressed any political opposition in the country. Therefore, many of his opponents have fled and are living in exile. Some have set up political parties abroad to continue their fight. And in Brussels, two such movements are starting to fall apart. France 24 reports on the tension between the groups, despite their common goal of democratizing Djibouti.
Freedom of expression in Djibouti is being suppressed. Arbitrary arrests are multiplying.
Denouncing the power in place for the last 18 years in Djibouti, the reoccurring topic of this meeting, organised by young Djiboutians in exile in Belgium. But today, there's another topic on their mind. 18 months ago, at the end of a rally like this one, Liban had his eyes gouged out on the streets of Brussels.
This Djiboutian youth is threatened not only in Djibouti, but also here in Brussels, the European capital.
The young man is now blind and has condemned the incident as a political crime. He blames another opposition Djiboutian party that is also established in Belgium called the MRD. The case is awaiting trial, but for the president, his party is not responsible.
Why would we pick on a young Djiboutian? That doesn't make sense. What is true is that the regime and others who play the game of the regime have tried to exploit this case to tarnish the image of the MRD.
Tensions remain rife among the fragmented Djiboutian opposition, and the MRD and the MJO Europe actually only represent a part.
The Djiboutian opposition is unable to unite around a common goal. We have not even thought about who should rule our country in the future. Will the country divide as there are tensions in neighbouring countries as well? Somalia is at war. Ethiopia also has political problems now. Eritrea is under a dictatorship.
4 years ago, the opposition did manage to come together, raising the hopes of many Djiboutians. But it didn't last long, and the unity has since fallen apart. And in 2016, President Ismail Omar Guelleh was re-elected for a fourth term with over 86% of the vote.
Benin's parliament has banned the sale of fuel by unauthorized street vendors. Most of the country's population gets their gasoline this way, and the new law has sellers worried about the future of their livelihood. Nicolas Jaman has the story.
In Benin, most people buy their petrol by the roadside. It is smuggled in from neighboring Nigeria, Africa's biggest oil producer. Now, Benin's parliament wants to ban this system. But many say they have no other option to earn a living.
I haven't slept since I heard the news. This sector represents a lot to me. I need it to provide for my parents and my children back in the village.
Sellers could face up to 3 years in jail. The president of their association is angry.
It's not that we're happy with what we're doing. It's just that there is nothing else for us to do. We don't want to steal or take guns and hijack cars. So that's why, despite the risks, we are doing this.
Consumers point out that there are far too few petrol stations in Benin.
By the roadside, it's cheaper. If the state decreases the price at the pump, we won't have to buy it on the roadside. But how many stations do we have on this main road, for example? 0.
The authorities stress that contraband fuel has led to deadly incidents. Last year, for example, one explosion caused the death of an 8-year-old girl.
And now a look at African football news. Tunisia's World Cup team lost to England 2-1 in a vigorous debut match today. Our sports editor, Ketavan Gorjestani, is in Volgograd, Russia, covering all the action and joins us now. Ketavan, it was a loss for Tunisia, but how did the squad look during its premier outing?
Well, they did look well, especially in the second half. The first half was really all about England, especially the first 30 minutes. And Tunisia only equalized after a mistake, a foul, and a penalty that was awarded to Tunisia after an England foul. So they equalized, not in the game, but through England's mistake. After that, though, England lost a bit of their brilliance, and Tunisia stepped up their game, did much better, especially in that second half where they played better. They had more opportunities, but unfortunately they failed to score on those opportunities. A lot of missed chances for the Tunisians, but they were holding on to that 1-1 draw until the final minutes of stoppage time when Harry Kane scored that winning goal for England. So, of course, it's very cruel for Tunisia, for the Tunisian fans tonight, that last minute loss. The fans walking out of the stadium, of course, very disappointed, and this continues the bad results for African nations. The first 4 African nations, Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, and Tunisia, all losing their opening game. Tomorrow, Senegal will be playing against Poland, hoping to turn that record around and at least gain 1 victory for the African continent.
And thank you, Ketavan. And of course, Tuesday, as you said, we'll be keeping an eye on Senegal's World Cup match with Poland. And finally, he became world famous last month after rescuing a toddler from danger here in Paris. And now Mamadou Gassama has received a hero's welcome during his visit to his native country of Mali. The young man, dubbed the Paris Spider-Man, hails from a village in western Mali. The 3-day visit is his first time back since he crossed the Mediterranean on a migrant boat in September 2014. He also met President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta during the trip. Next week, Gassama will be starting an internship with the prestigious Paris Fire Brigade, a position granted along with residency as a thank you for his courageous act. That's all for this edition, but do stay with us here on France 24. There's more news coming up next.
Because a new page of history gets written every day. Because breaking news can't wait. Information everywhere. In all situations. On every subject. Understanding the world. Imagining the world. France 24, a different take on the news.